We're now on Daf Ayin Aleph Amid Beis, and now the Gemara is going to interpret the Machlokes based on what we saw back on Daf Samach Tes between Beis Hillel and Beit Shammai. And what it means is there's a tziruf between Afara the father and Afara the Baal to be matir the neder completely. Each one, the father and the Baal, has a power to be mefer and to reduce and diminish the status of the neder. However, Beis Hillel and Beit Shammai argue on how to define the essence of that diminishment or giron in the neder. According to Beit Shammai, it's megas gayas. It means that the father was mefer or the Baal was mefer. That cuts the neder in half and is matir completely half the neder. The second half of the neder is completely powerful as it was originally, 100%. Beis Hillel, on the other hand, are of the opinion that haklosha, each one, whether it's the Baal was mefer or the Av was mefer, is maklish the neder, and the giron now is on the entire neder. And if the father was mefer on his own, then after she was nisarsa to the Nora Sheni, is haforas ha'av levaduk shenisarsa li'oras hasheni bimkom shehefer ha'oras harishon. The father can only be mefer the neder if the oras hasheni will step into the shoes of the first oras and be mefer in place of the first oras together with the father. And the Gemara explains. Beit Shammai Savri Nedarim Nami Sheroy Orus Nisrokno L'Rishus La'av Who Megis Guides. The Nedarim that the first Orus knew about, and he gained his rights to be mefer, are Nisrokno L'Rishus La'av. That right to be mefer now is given over, according to the Shita Beit Shammai, to the father. Why? Because the Baal was Megis Gayis. He was matir completely his half of the neder, so that after the Aros Rishon was made for the neder, he completed his hafara, and he's now out of the picture. He doesn't have any connection whatsoever to the neder. So therefore, according to the Shita Beit Shammai, even after she gets remarried to a second Orus, the father could be mefer as a single effort, the exclusive effort, the entire neder, because the din of hafaras habal was completely removed from this neder. That's based on Megis Gayas. So this is the Sefer. Shoma Baila Veheferla. And now we say that if the husband, after this hafara was died, then Nisrokna L'Rishus Ha'av. And therefore the father will be made for the neder as a sole effort. Avo, but according to Beis Hillel, Savri Avia Ubailachno Mefir Nedareh, why does Beis Hillel reject Beit Shammai in terms of Nisrokna? Why can't, with the Misa of the Baal, the father pick up the rights of the late Baal? and be made for as his sole effort, without requiring the joint hafara of the second Baal, because Beis Hillel reject Megis Gaius, they hold Miklish Kalish, and this klishus of the neder is not considered a complete Maisa. And therefore it cannot be Chal without linking up with the father who's now going to be Maklish the neder. So the two Hakloshos HaNeder will now integrate to form one Hafara. But until the father was made for the Nedarim, the Oris is not mistalik from the Neder because he didn't really achieve anything. He was only Maklish the Neder. Now he needs to link up with the Haklosh of the father. In such a case, if the Oris is still in the picture, so to speak, he hasn't completed and achieved anything that would allow him to be mistalik, then the second Oris, after she gets remarried, would have to pick up that part of the Hafaras Nedarim from the first Orus, and together the last Orus could be made for with the father. So let's see if we can give an overview or a summary of the Seif of this Brisa. Again, the Baal heard about the Neder and he was made. He died before the father was heard about the Neder. She, in the meantime, gets remarried. So now we're going again according to the Ran. The Ran is going to say, as we explained it, but let's review it, that the din in this case depends upon Beit Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beit Shammai would grant the father exclusive rights to be made for the Nedarim without the second Orus, because the Orus with his Hafara, Megis Gaius, accomplished everything that he has to accomplish. And what he achieved was matir, he split the nether into half, and he was matir his half completely. Now he's removed from the picture. And therefore, even though after his death, his hafar is not chal, but once he's out of the picture as far as the nether is concerned, because he, with his hafara, was Megis Gaius, therefore we apply the principle of Nisrokna, and the Rishus of the Baal now is transferred over to the Av. And according to Beit Shammai, if the Baal had died before the Hafara, then Beit Shammai would concede that it's the Oros HaAchron together with the Av that would do a joint Hafara, because the Rishon was not Nistalik Min HaNeder. So you need the Hafara of the Oros HaAchron. But the main thrust of this brisa is that since the Baal was made for the Neder and he was mistalik, therefore we can apply Nisrokna, and the father as a sole effort will be made for the Neder. However, according to Beit Shammai, according to Beis Hillel, who hold Hakloshas HaNeder, then the father cannot be made for without the Oros HaAchron. The Oros HaRishon is only maklish the neder; he's not matir completely, and the heter would only be chal when there's integration with Hafaras Ha'av. So if the Oros HaRishon is still in the picture, and the father was not made for, then since the Oros was not mistalik, when he dies before the Hafaras Ha'av, he is morish, he bequeaths his chelek of Hafaras Nedarim to the Oros HaAchron, who now comes in his place. That's all according to the Ran. According to Tosfos and the Rosh, the dinim are the same. They don't disagree with the Ran in this sefer. Beit Shammai would hold that the father could do a sole effort and be made for the neder, whereas Beis Hillel requires that the Oros HaAchron together with the father is made for the Nedarim. However, for a different reason than the Ran, although the conclusion is identical. The reason, according to Tosfos and the Rosh, that according to Beit Shammai, the father alone is made for the Nedarim, is because since the Nedarim were Nirim L'Rishon, then we apply the principle of Nisrokna. And the Nisrokna only applies to the Rishus Ha'av, but not to the Rishus of the Oros Ha'achron. Now, according to the sheet of Tosva Rosh, even if the first Oros died before he was Mefer, Beit Shammai would hold that the Oros Ha'achron does not pick up the schus of the neder, because since the neder was Nira L'Rishon, and he died before he was Mefer, then we're going to apply the principle of Nisrokna, and the Sheni is not Zoch. Let me just see if that makes sense, because if Beit Shammai hold that what? That there's a general din of Nisrokna, so that's going to apply even if the Rishon, the first Oros, was gone before he was Mefer. So it's interesting because Megiz Gaius applies after the Oros was Mefer. Now we're talking about a scenario in which the Rishon, the Oros, died before he was Mefer. But it doesn't matter, because once Beit Shammai have the concept of Nisrokna based on Megiz Gaius, then Nisrokna is going to apply even when before there's no Megiz Gaius, because the Baal was not Mefer during his lifetime. Now we get to Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel is going to say that you need the joint effort of the Oros Ha'achron to be made for together with the father, because the Oros Ha'achron is Zoche even in Nedarim that were Nira L'Rishon, and that's Shmuel. And that's exactly what this price is going to establish, that even though the Oros HaRishon heard about the Neder, he was Zoche Nafar the Neder, he will be replaced by the Oros Ha'achron, and the Oros Ha'achron now, together with the Av, will be made for the Neder. Iboilahu, the Gemara says, Safek. Let's say the Oros divorces his wife, and she has Nedarim. Is Gerushin Kishtika Damya or Ka'akoma Damya? Now, the Gemara is challenging us to understand why Gerushin is Ka'akoma Damya. It makes a lot more sense that Kishtika Damya, because the Oros did not express his opinion about the neder before he divorced his wife, so maybe he was thinking of being made for the neder. We don't know, go guess. But the Gemara has a second side to say that the gerushin is already akama. And what does this mean? At the moment that the Oros delivers the get to his wife, he realizes that he is completely undermining his rights to be made for the nedarim. And once implicit in that action of gerushin is a statement, a declaration that I give up my rights to be made for the nedarim, then it's as if he was makayim the neder with that gerushin. And the Gemara now is going to ask the following question: what difference does it make whether the gerushin is considered like hakama, like a shtika? Kigon Shenadja, the Naram Rasa took a neder. V'shama baila v'gersha. He heard about it and then he was megarisha. V'hadri biyoma, and he remarried her on this very same day. So let's just think about this before we read the Gemara. If he remarried her on the same day, so it's still biyom shamo, he could still be made for Hanedarim, unless we say that the gerushin per se is tantamount to a hafara. To a hakama. And therefore he can no longer be made for the neder because he was already makayim the neder. If you're going to say kiss shtika done matzu made for Allah, fine, nothing happened. He divorced her, remarried her, and together with the father, he'll now, when he remarries, he'll now be made for. But but if we're going to come to the conclusion that gerushin is ka'akama dami, is that once the Baal was making the neder, Lamotzi Mekbal, it can no longer be made for it. Because once you make Makayim a neder, there's no possibility of Hafara. And if the gerushin is itself constitutes Hakama, then there's no possibility of Hafara. And the Gemara here on Daf Ayin Beis, Rashi Tevis Azariah verse, no, I'm just kidding, is going to bring a brisa to prove that gerushin equals hakama. And again, the svara is that once he's divorcing her, he knows and he implicitly declares that he is giving up his rights to hafara. And giving up your rights to hafara is tantamount to hakama. Once there's hakama, he can no longer be made for them. Okay, then, so let's make a note of where we got up to here. And tomorrow we'll start with Tashma to try to prove that gerushin equals hakama. Wishing you a great day.